This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 137, entitled Building Your House. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode. Over the last couple of years, I have had the opportunity and pleasure to do workshops for a company, a medical office in St. George. It's a high-demand office called Southern Utah Ear, Nose, and Throat, and they've been so kind and generous to have me come and present to their staff to try to help the working environment run more smoothly and to create kind of that commonality, that unity, teamwork, and kind of build up the staff in what is often a high-stress environment. When I go there, I spend 90 minutes with them, and I teach them concepts, work with them to learn ways to navigate the challenges that come with this high-pressure setting. So last week, I had the opportunity to present once again at the office, and I did a workshop called From Floundering to Flourishing. And this workshop can apply both professionally and personally. And today, I want to explore one of the concepts that I taught in this workshop. And again, whether it is in your work life, your professional life, or in your personal life, I think this can be such a powerful exercise and concept. Now, I'm not sure exactly where it originated, but I was taught this concept by my dear friend, Tiffany, and she knows who she is. And the premise around this exercise is to imagine ourselves as a house. It's simple, but so powerful. It helps us to understand or have a better understanding of who we are and how we deal with life. So think of it like this. Just as a house has different parts that work together, there's a foundation, there's walls, there's a roof, there are windows and doors. We too, like this house, this metaphorical house, we have different elements that make us who we are. Now, a house needs a strong foundation to stand tall. Similarly, we need solid principles that guide our life. The walls support everything and protect us, just like our daily habits and the practices that we use to support who we want to become. Now, windows let us see out and they let others see in, like the parts of ourselves we choose to share with the world. The door represents what we've learned from others, the wisdom and traits that we have borrowed from mentors, family, and friends. And the roof protects us. Just like we all need healthy boundaries and ways to shield ourselves from harm. And finally, like a chimney releases smoke, we need ways to let go of stress and tension. We are going to spend the next little bit together exploring each of these different parts of our metaphorical house. We'll look at what they mean, how they work together, and most importantly, how understanding them can help us build a stronger, more authentic life. And before we get started, before we dive in, I just want to let you know that if you'd like me to come and present this workshop From Floundering to Flourishing to your business or group, just contact me via email at jill@seasons-coaching.com and let's get something set up. I think it will benefit whatever group you have that you think might enjoy this. So let's get started building. First, the foundation. Let's start there. The question here is a profound one. The question is this: what is the concept or idea by which you rule your life? think about that for a moment. This isn't about what others expect from you, but rather the fundamental principles that guide your decisions and actions, whether big or small. Maybe it's integrity, compassion, growth, or service to others. Your foundation needs to be strong enough to support everything else. So let's look at some examples of foundations. Maybe integrity, right? Or integrity-based foundation is built upon that our decisions align with our personal values, even when unseen. Maybe a growth-based foundation challenges our learning opportunities. Failure is feedback, right? We're not afraid to learn and grow and be challenged. Maybe your foundation is more service-based. Choices that benefit others are made. Success is measured by the positive impact we offer. Now, when we're looking at our foundation, we want to keep in mind how we can strengthen that foundation, right? Because that is what everything is built upon. Everything else about our life is built on this foundation. And so it's important to check on it and see how is my foundation doing? Is it where I want it to be? Could it be stronger? Do I want to strengthen it? So the first thing is authenticity, right? We want to reflect our personal values, right? This foundation reflects what is important to us. Being authentic means living in a way that is true to yourself without succumbing to external pressures, right? We're going to choose things that align with really what is important to us. We also want to be consistent, right? We apply this foundation across all areas of our life. This ensures that our foundation is stable and that we act in accordance with our values in every aspect of our life, right? We're consistent. We apply the foundation to every area of our life. Third is our foundation needs to be resilient, right? It can withstand challenges. Your foundation must be strong enough to handle the storms of life because they are going to come, right? And by allowing our ability to withstand those challenges, our foundation, right, can withstand those challenges, can allow us to bounce back from the hard things that happen in our life, from the adversity we face. So the resiliency that we can find in a strong foundation is so important. And finally, clarity, right? We want to clearly articulate our guiding principles. Knowing what you stand for helps you make decisions that are aligned with your true self, right? So think about that for a minute. Now, I know for me, when I did this exercise, I thought about it. I thought, what is my foundation? And for me, what I've come to believe is, what kind of person do I want to be, right? Who is that I'm trying to be? Who do I want to be in the situations in my life, in the relationships in my life? I want to be a person that offers light to the world, that puts good into the world, that puts kindness into the world. That's my foundation. And so everything else, really, I try to tie back to that idea, is how can I be the good in the world? How can I add or bring more light into the world? That's a foundation that means a lot to me. So I want you to think of your foundation like an inner compass. It's not just this nice idea, right? It's this gut feeling that helps you make choices every single day. It's both who you are right now, today, and who you want to become in the future, right? It's bridging those two parts of ourselves, if you will, to really tie those together. This is who I want to be now and who I want to be in the future. So a good foundation feels right to you, right? It pushes you to grow, but it doesn't force you to become someone you're not. When you have this solid base, you can handle life's challenges while staying true to yourself, like a tree with strong roots that can bend in the wind without breaking. But what matters most is that your foundation feels genuinely yours, not what others expect of you, not what looks good on paper, but what truly guides you when you have to make tough choices. So that's my invitation. The first invitation is look at your foundation. What is a concept or an idea which rules your life? Think about that for a minute. Okay. Then once you've kind of found that, you've thought about it, you've discovered kind of what your foundation is, that principle or idea that you're trying to build your life on. So next we want to look to our walls. I want you to think about your walls as your daily habits that support your foundation. These are those routines that uphold your life's structure, right? They could be professional skills, personal relationships, or self-care practices, right? They're all aspects, those actions, those things that we put in place, those habits that we have that actually make our life, right? If you want to create something different, focus on the habits that you do on a day-to-day basis. So here are some 4 aspects of strong habits, right? Again, consistency. What are those regular and sustainable practices that you have in your life that support and strengthen that foundation? And habits are consistently practiced, right? They create a strong structure to our life. So consistency, those regular, sustainable practices, what are those for you that help you build on that foundation? Number 2 is balance, right? Paying attention in our personal and our professional, our spiritual life, right? Can we create balance there to prevent burnout and promote and foster an overall well-being, right? We know when we're kind of getting out of balance, when we're focusing too much on one area in our life. Can we look at our walls and decide what is a well-rounded range of habits that will support me and strengthen my foundation? Third, alignment, right? We want to connect our habits to the foundation. We want to ensure that our daily actions reflect the values embedded in our foundation. And fourth, growth. We want to incorporate, and I talked about this in one of my recent podcast episodes, right? Like the minimum and maximum, the floors, the ceilings, right? We want to incorporate things that meet us where we are, while at the same time building in challenges, things that push us just a little, that will build our skills. And these strong walls that we are creating are built by continually improving and adapting our skills, right? It's revisiting our walls. It's inspecting our walls, examining our walls. Are these habits really helping me live the life that I want to create? So when I did this exercise, a couple of the things, I think you could get as specific as you want, right? It could be habits that are so specific, like meditation, prayer, things that you're working on memorizing, right? Setting up time to serve, using your skills to teach and mentor other people, right? We want to look at all these areas that would fit into our walls of support. But for me, as I thought about this, a couple of things that really helped me tap into my foundation of being a light to the world and putting light into the world and being good in the world is curiosity and pausing, right? My action of curiosity helps me move away from judgment into kindness. It also helps me learn and see people as people. And when we see people as people, by being curious, we actually see them in a different way, and we see them as children of God. And so we're going to treat people differently when we see them differently. And the other thing was pausing. I have incorporated a practice of pausing. And oftentimes, I've said this before, I use a phrase like, "that's interesting." And it's just a verbal cue to help me kind of stop and pause and to think with intention on how I want to respond. So slowing down and pausing is one aspect of my wall to help me choose with intention how I want to respond to the different things in my life, with the people in my life, and how to be kind and generous and compassion. It's when I slow down and I pause that I allow myself to really take everything in and make my choices consciously. So for me, that is two aspects of my wall, but we could include so many other things. And so that's an invitation to you. Look at your life. What are those habits? What are those things that you have in place that help you tie in to your foundation? So when we want to inspect our walls, there's some questions that we can ask, right? We can ask what's working, what isn't. Sometimes the things we do aren't really serving us, but we haven't taken the time to really get curious about them. Is this action helping me support my foundation? Is my work life and personal life and spiritual life balanced? Am I doing things to build my walls in a way that feels balanced? Do your habits support what matters to you? And if not, what is missing and what needs to change? I think those are really great questions to ask ourselves as we step back and we analyze our walls and we inspect and look for ways to really strengthen them in a way that helps us, again, tie back to that foundation. And remember, the strength of your house doesn't just depend on the foundation, right? That is an important piece. But it is also important how well we support it with our walls. The walls are a key piece into the strength of our foundation of our house. Your supporting methods should work together in harmony, right? Reinforcing each other while maintaining that balance and stability. So that's my invitation. Look at your walls. Ask those questions. Are the things you're doing or not doing, are those strengthening your walls and your foundation? The third piece I want to look at is the door. This is fascinating because it represents an important part that you've borrowed from someone else. The door is both an entrance and an acknowledgement of those who have shaped us, right? We have so many people that influence us and teach us that we pull from, right? There's things we borrow from other people and they shape us into the person that we are. Think of it as the entryway through which wisdom and influence have passed into our lives, right? So here's some questions to think about. The first one is, who has influenced you in your life and what did you learn? When we reflect on the people who have shaped us, that can give us some insight into why certain things are valuable to us, why our values are what they are, because we're reflecting on the people who have influenced our lives. Number two, how have you made these traits your own? What have you taken and then added your style into? Consider how these borrowed elements have been integrated into how you show up in the world, right? How have what you've borrowed from other people affected the way you interact with the world around you? And finally, what borrowed elements need updating or releasing, right? I think sometimes we might even want to look at some of those habits or those patterned beliefs or behaviors that don't serve us. Did we learn those from someone? Right? Is it time to let it go? Is it time to shift it a little bit so that it serves us better instead of we're just going through the motions and living on autopilot and leaning into some of those things that just come natural because that's all we've known. But what if we stepped back and we reassessed and really asked ourselves, what still serves me and what do I need to let go of? I think those are really good questions to reflect upon. As I've thought about my door, right, I have a dear friend who I keep telling her when I grow up, I want to be like her. She's so mindful of other people. She knows when someone's in need. She's constantly reaching out because that's the kind of person she wants to be. She wants to be mindful of other people. And I so admire it. And I try to do that. I've tried to borrow that. And I don't do it exactly the way she does. I do it a little bit different, but it inspires me to be service-minded. It really has influenced me as I've watched her serve. So what are those doors in your life? And again, think about those doors where maybe it isn't serving you. Is it time to let something go? Right? I know for a time I was influenced by a way to cope with different things. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about our roof. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what are those things that we've borrowed from other people that aren't helping strengthen our foundation, that aren't helping us build a life and a foundation that we love? What can we let go of that is no longer serving us, that maybe we've borrowed from somebody else? So good things to think about. There's something powerful about acknowledging where we came from and who helped shape us along the way, right? It starts with a genuine gratitude, taking the time to recognize the people who taught us, the wisdom they shared, how their guidance helped us grow. And this awareness helps us better understand ourselves too. Seeing where our habits and patterns come from, deciding which ones still serve us, and thoughtfully adapting what we've learned to fit who we are today. But it doesn't stop with us. Like links in a chain, we have a chance to pass on what we've learned, adding our own wisdom and experience along the way. We can create new traditions while honoring old ones, building on the foundations of others the foundation others have laid while making them relevant for the future. It's like being part of a living story. Think about that for a minute, where we're both the student and the teacher. We're always receiving wisdom while at the same time passing wisdom on. Think about that for a minute. So what are your doors? What are those things that you want to keep and use that you've borrowed from others? And what are those things that you're going to kind of let go and then add in your own wisdom? All right. And next, I want to talk about our windows, right? The window allows you to share what you're proud of with the world, right? It's about authentic achievements and contributions, not just superficial accolades, right? It's not all about, look at me, look at me. It's about sharing things that in ways maybe we've grown. When I did this exercise with someone recently, it was a younger person, and the thing that they put in their window was that they want people to see how far they've come. They want people to see how much they've grown, right? They're learning who they are. They're learning what is important to them and the person they want to be. And they feel like they've come so far from where they used to be. And so I think that is a beautiful example of a window. It's not about just look at me. It's about look how far I've come and what good I am doing. So how do we do this? Right? There's three examples of how we can do this. One is sharing our journey with other people, right? Including the struggles that we face. This transparency fosters connection with other people. When people can see us navigate our challenges, overcome our challenges, learning from our challenges through the sharing of our story, that is so powerful. Another way is teaching others, right? We pass on knowledge and support growth. We share our insights, which can empower others on their journeys, right? We teach them. And third, through our living example, right? We demonstrate our values through the actions that we take. Our life can inspire others when we embody our principles, when we embody our why. So those habits that are supporting those walls, right? The walls that are supporting our house, when we allow other people to see those practices, the effects of those practices, right? That can be seen through our window. So think about that. What is your window, or at least one of your windows? What is something that you would want to share with others? And remember this, your window display should reflect what truly matters to you and what genuinely adds value to others. It's not about impressing people. It's not even about what they think, right? It's about sharing authentic contributions that might inspire someone else or help someone else or encourage others in their journeys, right? So that's the window. Think about that. What is your window? What is something that you wish that you could share with the world, that you're proud of, that you would like others to see? And the next one is the roof. Looking up at the roof, we find our protective mechanisms, right? The ways we shield ourselves from harm. Some of these might be healthy boundaries, right? They might be a protection that is healthy, while others might be defensive patterns, right? And again, sometimes those are things we've borrowed, right? The door that's come through our door. So it kind of ties into that. What are those things that we have developed over time to protect ourselves? What protective mechanisms do you use? Are they still serving their purpose, or have they become limitations? Think about that for a minute. Now, just as a roof protects a house from the elements, our protective mechanism, the different mechanisms we use, shield us from potential harm. Right? Remember, our brain is always looking for danger. It's trying to keep us safe. And so as a result, we move into these mechanisms to protect ourselves. However, it's crucial to distinguish between healthy boundaries that protect us and those rigid defenses that might restrict our growth, right? So there are ways that we can see what is a healthy protection. But before I offer that, I remember thinking, for me, as I did this exercise, I thought about what are some of mine? Well, the unhealthy ones are when I pull in, I withdraw, or I people please, right? I try to manage other people's emotions and go along with things just to not ruffle feathers, right? Not always protective. I mean, they protect us, but they don't always serve us. So we want to look at those habits, those mechanisms we go to protect ourselves. But sometimes someone once said, even self-isolation, right? Again, that withdrawal. What are those things that you do to protect yourself? Maybe it's even just giving yourself space. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's creating a healthy boundary, what we know we can handle and what we know we can't, and taking action from that place. So what are those things? So there's a way to kind of get an idea or look for signs of healthy protection. Number one, if they're flexible, right? Flexibility. These protectors adjust to the context and feedback of the situation. Healthy boundaries can change as your situation evolves, right? It's not a hard, fast rule. It reads the nuances of the situation. And number two, clarity, right? Clear and communicated boundaries are healthy. Being clear about your limits helps other people understand how to respect you. We just need to tell them. They can't read our minds, right? So being clear about our wants, our needs, our desires, that is a way to protect ourselves. We communicate what those things are. And third is balance, right? Appropriate and sustainable protection is so important. Your boundaries should protect you without isolating you from others, right? Again, when I gave my example about withdrawing or people pleasing, those tend to isolate me from other people. So we want to look at what are those boundaries that can protect us in a healthy way, in a loving way. So think about that. What are those things you go to in a healthy way and maybe not so much? Is it time to inspect your roof? Is it time to look at those mechanisms and decide, is this serving me or is this disconnecting me from other people? Remember, a good roof protects while still allowing light and air to flow. I love that. Your protective mechanisms should create safety without sacrificing growth and connection. Regular maintenance and updates ensure your protective roof remains effective without becoming restrictive. So think about that. What are some of those things you do to protect yourself? Are they doing you good? Are they serving you, or are they hindering you? Pay attention. What makes up your roof? And finally, the chimney. The chimney represents release mechanisms for stress and emotions. Having healthy outlets is crucial for maintaining our well-being, right? We've got to be able to release and take care of ourselves. And so we want to design it in a way that serves us to our best good, right? So one way is coming up with 3 types of releases. The first one is a quick release. Simple practices like deep breathing. That is something I do. I put my hand on my chest and I just breathe deep. Sometimes it's standing by my window or out on my deck and just soaking in the sun, if there's sunshine, but the air, right? And just letting myself quickly release, right? This is a quick technique that can alleviate some of the immediate stress. It's something that you can do very quickly. You don't have to think about it. You can pause and do it right where you are, no matter where you are, right? Another type is a medium release. These are activities like exercise or creativity, right? And when we engage in these activities, it can provide a more substantial emotional release, right? Like we are getting outside and walking, moving our body. Movement always helps me release stress. So it takes a little more time, but it can give us maybe a more substantial emotional release. And finally, deep releases, right? This involves extensive activities like maybe immersing ourselves in something like art or music or spiritual practices where we dedicate a certain amount of time and we immerse ourselves. And these type of releases foster maybe a deeper healing and reflection, right? It creates space for that. And so we will probably design a combination of all 3. So that's an invitation to you. What are those releases that you have? Can you come up with something you can do in just a matter of seconds, right? What are your quick releases? What are your medium releases? Do you want to move your body? Do you want to be creative in some way? How can you have maybe a little more substantial of a release without taking too much time? And finally, a deep release. What are those practices that you can put in place that are more substantial, that can invite maybe a greater amount of healing and reflection, right? So look at those. What are those practices that you have? For me, it is getting outside. I would say that my biggest stress reliever, my biggest mechanism or practice of releasing stress and tension is moving my body. So find that thing that helps support you in releasing, because we've got to allow ourselves to release some of these things that are weighing us down, right? And we can shift our perspective when we've released that emotional tension in our life. It's hard to tap into our clear thinking, right? When we are emotionally activated or our nervous system is activated, it's hard to make intentional choices, right? We're kind of operating from a survival place, right? So what are those things that you can put in place to help you release some of that tension and stress so that you can bring your prefrontal cortex back online and choose with intention? So what are those things? Remember, a well-functioning chimney prevents buildup and it maintains the health of the entire house. Your release mechanisms should be able to regulate you. They should be reliable and they should be readily available so that you can maintain your overall well-being, so you can take care of you. So this is what makes this framework, right? The house framework. I just love this. And when I gave this workshop and I add more stuff to this, it made me think, like, I'm picturing this house, right? And we focus on building our house and we're putting all these things in place. Well, then we move into a neighborhood of other houses, right? Or other people. And so we want to make sure that our house is well functioning and strong and healthy so that we can interact with those in our neighborhood, right? In a loving, healthy way. So the thing that makes this framework so valuable is it helps us understand that just like a real house, our personal development needs regular maintenance. It's not just one and done. There needs to be occasional renovation and sometimes even major repairs. Not every room needs to be perfect, but the structure as a whole needs to be sound. So before we wrap up today, I'd like to offer some reflective questions. Number 1, which part of your house feels strongest right now? Where do you feel strong right now? And number 2, where might you need some renovation or repair? As you review your house and the different parts of your house, where might you need some renovation or repair? And finally, how do all these elements work together to create your complete self? As you review all these parts of the house, how can you see that being what shapes you and the life that you're creating? Now, remember, this isn't about building a perfect house. It's about creating a structure that authentically represents who you are and supports who you want to become. So I encourage you to take some time this week to sketch out your own house, labeling each part with your personal answers. You might be surprised by what you discover. I'm going to put in the show notes a PDF of the house that I made with the questions in each area of the house just for reference. So if you're interested in that, you can click in the show notes and find that PDF. When we are flourishing, right? When we're thriving, we're like a well-built home, secure in our foundation of values while remaining flexible enough to adapt and change. And just as a house has different rooms for different purposes, we create space within ourselves for all of life's experiences, from moments of joy to times of challenge. We don't aim for perfection, but rather build a living space that's both sturdy and welcoming, where we can grow through each experience while staying grounded in our inner strength. I want to thank you for joining me today. And until next time, keep building with intention and care. Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.